Hey, hey, hey. I hope that you are well. Today I'm going to talk about something a little bit different, and I'm going to be talking about something that is near and dear to my heart that I wish with all of my might that people did more of, especially Black women. But before that, hello, how are you? Thank you for joining and watching this video. My name is Alicia Haskett, and I do this video vlog thing while I do my hair because I want to talk about things that are happening in the world, especially as it pertains to Black women. I'm all about Black womanhood and how I can support and guide Black women into loving and honoring their bodies as they are now, and just tapping into their version of pleasure and being their favorite person. Not the person that they think that others are telling them they should be, but the favorite version of themselves. Not the best version, but their favorite version. Okay, so I am doing what I always do, which is rodding my hair because I like how it looks for me. But, what is that? I'm looking at the wrong hand. Anyway, one of the things that I want to talk about today is how I wish more Black women would be like, you know what? I'm really just going to worry about myself, and not just worry about myself, but I'm going to do something out of the ordinary and see what happens. And for me, that means shutting down my studio. And that means taking the time. I don't know if I want to do this. Let me see. It's been a minute since I've tried to do it like this. That's a negative. Stick to the roads. But yes, moving back to what I was saying. I really want Black women to get to the point where they make a pivot. And I know that word has been used so many times, especially in the age of COVID. But I think that I have made several pivots in my life. And I wouldn't even say pivots. I would call it reinventions in my life, where I've had to I've been forced to make a reinvention, or I've decided to make a reinvention. And let me say this. If you were forced to do a reinvention, forced to do a pivot, and you weren't ready, that shit is for the birds, okay? But if you are able to do a reinvention and you have the time to do it, do it. Shit, even if you don't have the time to do it, do it. And I say this because one of the things that I realize that a lot of people struggle with is worrying about what other people are going to say, worrying about what other people are going to do, how they are going to react to you making changes in your life. And one of the things that I did when I made my first pivot or first reinvention, which again was not something that I wanted to do, but I didn't have a choice, was I decided that I was going to choose myself. And that meant that however I was going to show up for myself was how I was going to show up for myself. It didn't matter what anybody else thought about it, because the way I figured is that I am living this life as this full version of myself. And if I want to do that, if I want to be the fullest version of Alicia, I can only do that if I am worried about my needs, my wants, and also worried about how I can create a community that allows me to do that. Now, before that, and this is around 2017, I didn't have that. I did not have that, okay? I was so in love so in the space where I was doing anything and everything to make sure that my ex-husband had all his needs met, and I was put on the back burner because I wanted to make sure he was good. And so what ended up happening is that I look crazy. And by crazy, I mean physically I look crazy. I mean mentally I was exhausted. I mean everything that could happen to a woman when she is trying to make sense of taking care of someone who's not her child. And even if they were your child, and that person is steady doing things to make sure that you feel like you are not wanted. Message. That's what I was doing. That's what I was about. I was making sure that my husband was fed, even though I didn't cook. He cooked most of the time. But I was making sure we had the money to get the food. I was making sure we had the space to do what we had to do. Making sure that he knew that I was willing to meet all his needs because he meant more to me than I did to myself. And when that shit hit the fan, when I realized, or when I was basically told by his actions that that wasn't how his love was set up, his respect for me was set up, it threw my entire world into a clusterfuck, okay? Because not only was I dealing with the loss of, trigger warning, of children via miscarriage, I was dealing with the loss of my husband. I was dealing with the loss of my car because I got into a major car accident right before that, or in the same month, actually. This all happened in the same month. And I didn't have anything to do but to just sit. That's all I could do, was to sit and to process what the fuck happened and how I allowed myself to be in this position to have this person have so much control over my emotions that I missed the red flags. Well, not missed them. I saw them. I just didn't feel the need to follow through them. And I'm going to tell you why. One of the reasons why is because of time. Which is why reinvention is so important to me right now. Because in my mind, I was thinking to myself, I have been with this man from 18 to 30. Like, I didn't want to give that up because of how much time I had invested in this relationship. That shit didn't matter. Okay? And I didn't realize that because I was just thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I'm a black woman. I see all these statistics that are saying that black women are, not going to meet anybody, and they are pretty much at like the bottom of the barrel, and they're not getting married. And here I am married to someone who is extremely handsome, who is extremely fit, who, is all these things, and I need to stick around. I need to stay here because I'm not going to get anything better. And I never said that out loud. But that's how it felt. And so when that was no longer the case, I had to reevaluate. And I'd never done that before. Like, I was literally like, oh my God, like, what am I supposed to do now? From talking to someone every day for the last, years, from 18 to 30, to now not even wanting to be in that person's space, not even wanting to see them, not even wanting to talk to them, not even wanting to be like just be in their actual presence. And so to now have to deal with that and it be thrust upon me in a way that just shattered me, was like, oh shit, now what? And so getting to a space where you hit rock bottom and then realizing that you have to save yourself is a very, very humbling experience. It is so humbling because you have to choose yourself. And if you don't, it can lead to a lot of shit. You can become bitter. You can become angry. You can become depressed. Like you don't take care of yourself. You go through all these emotions. And so I made a decision to choose myself when I had not done so before. But with choosing myself, I also had to forgive myself for dumb shit, like believing that this person was going to change, knowing that he wasn't. He had no incentive to change because he knew I was going to be there. He knew I was going to take care of the things that needed to be taken care of. And so in that space, once I had to rely on myself, once I had to be by myself, I was like, I'm going to reinvent myself. I can do this shit. Like I can tap into my version of who I want to be because I didn't know. I had no idea who I was as a 30-year-old Black woman living on her own. Like, I think that was the first time that was the second time I lived on my own. But it was such an experience for me, such an awakening that I was not prepared for, but I did it. Let me just say this. If you were in a space where you were trying to figure out who you are as a person, do not try to date. It is for the birds. It is ridiculous. Listen, dating after 30 when you have not dated before is fucking hilarious, crazy, and I do not recommend it unless you have certain things in place, like what you really want, to know what you will and will not deal with. I didn't have that. I didn't know I needed that. So let me just say that. But after that, which was in 2017, and if you want to know more about that story, I wrote a whole like journal about it. I'll put that link into the down below in the description. But I had to reinvent myself, and I did. I became this version of me that was living out loud, that was not afraid to, show my body, that was not afraid to, and when I say show my body, I mean, I had people thinking that I was 2 to 3 sizes bigger than I was because I was always wearing clothes that were ill-fitting. I don't know what that was. I think a lot of that may have been about being in a depressive state for like 5 years, being in that marriage. But a lot of people did not realize that I was not that big. And they were like, I didn't realize because you always just never looked put together. So that was something that I was like, oh shit, that was different. I didn't realize that. And I really wasn't focused on it because, as I said, my emotions were tied up into my partner. Like all of my emotions were tied up in what he wanted. And so everything was just about him. And I'm not saying this to say I'm blaming him for that because I was an active participant. But yeah. Anyway, moving forward. So 2017, made that first pivot. That was when I really decided to do Boudoir fully. No weddings, no portraits, just Boudoir. And then a few months into that, I decided I'm just going to focus on Black women. Now that was another pivot. So the first thing is, when it comes to pivoting and reinvention, is it doesn't have to be a big, grandiose thing. It could be small things that you are doing to change the trajectory of your life. So for me, it was, I'm going to only do Boudoir. Then it was, I'm only going to work with Black women. And so from that point on, that's what I did. And from there, it was, I need to focus on not just the boudoir side of it, but I really want to focus on the self-care and radical self-care, because as I've said and I've always said, you cannot self-care your way out of systematic oppression. It don't work, sis. It's not going to work. So you have to show up for yourself at all times and say, I am making a choice to be the favorite version of myself because I exist. And so I focused on that narrative, that message of how are you showing up as yourself, as yourself? How are you showing up as yourself and not showing up as your representative? Not showing up thinking you have to be a model to do a boudoir experience. Not showing up thinking you have to lose 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds to do a boudoir experience. That's not what this is about. This is about you showing up and saying, I am choosing to do this because I love my body, or because I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to love my body. That is what I wanted. That is still what I strive for in my business. And then I decided in 2019 to make another reinvention pivot in my life, which was me taking the time to say, where the fuck are all the Black boudoir photographers? And where are the models or clients on these major boudoir pages who look like me, who look like my mama, my sister, my cousins, my aunties? Where are these people at? Because I see them every day, but I don't see them out in these spaces. And I was like, this is crazy. And so in 2019, July to be exact, I started Boudoir for Black women. Now, I just started Boudoir for Black women because I wanted it to be a space for Black women to see themselves as the standard of beauty. And I also wanted it to be a way for Black women to vet boudoir photographers. I know that there are some photographers who are doing this work and they don't mean well for Black women, women in general, people in general. So I wanted to make sure that I was showing up for my community and saying, hey, let me show you who you can go to in Chicago. Let me show you who you can go to in Las Vegas. Let me show you who you can go to in Baltimore. Like, that is what it became. And then from there, it has just transitioned and blossomed into what it is now, which is the Coterie Noir, which is now a space to teach other boudoir photographers how to take pictures and capture the essence of Black women. That's what it is now, which was not on my bingo card, okay? But it's here. And in that space, it has really allowed me to have my voice heard in a way that I was not expecting at all. Now, on the personal front, in 2021, I decided that I was going to go full time. So this was a major pivot. This was not a little pivot. This was a major pivot where I decided to go full time as an entrepreneur. Now, this was for me a moment where it was like what people call that come to Jesus moment, where you are saying, I want to bet on myself, but I am afraid. But my thought process was this: if I, in 2016, can go through all of the things that I went through and come out and be this person that I am today, bitch, I can do it. I'm going to do it. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to do it in a way where I'm not hustling, because I'm not about that hustle culture. But I'm going to do it in a way where I am still showing up for myself, still trying to make sure that I'm resting, which I'm still working on getting hobbies, but also making sure that I am creating a community where others get to show up as themselves. Like, that's what I really, really wanted. That's what I still to this day strive for, is to show up for my community. And so that leads me to today. I've made a decision. Well, I made it previously and I talked about it, but I've truly now have made the decision to close my studio. And the reason is that I have been able to do some amazing things recently, some workshops that allow me to connect with multiple women at the same time. Now, when I do my boudoir experiences in my studio space, it's just me one on one, with one person. And so I get to pour into them. I get to pour into that person. We get to have conversations. They get to see their images, and it's a beautiful experience. But for me, I want more. I want to be able to provide more. So what I decided, which is why the Cartagena trip has come out, is because I want to be able to take Black women and women of color and put them in a space where I can do what I do in my studio over several days. I can nurture them. I can give them what they need to be their favorite version of themselves while taking bomb-ass boudoir images, and then bring people along who I know who are amazing at their craft, in order to say, listen, I am just one person, but I want to bring these people, and we're going to go to this location, and we're going to be able to feed each other. We're going to be able to feed each other's soul and say, hey, I see you, sis. Like, I really see you. I see what you're going through. I see who you are. I see what you're trying to do. And I want to tell you that you got this. You are the reason why we get up every day and be like, hey, I'm doing this for my sisters. I'm doing this for the ones who see me. I'm doing this for the ones who are vested in me. And that's exactly what I wanted. And so I went to in what month was that? I think it was 2 years ago, maybe. I don't even know now. I did a retreat. I was brought in to do a retreat based on that journal that I was talking to you about, the Reinvention Journal. And I did it as a Galentine's Day event. And that person brought me back this year. So the year before, I went to Jamaica with them. And then this year, I went to Mexico with them. And it was such a different experience because the workshop itself was fully me doing all the work. Before, it was like, oh, we're going to have this good time, party time, and then we're going to have like one workshop. This one was several days. And I got to meet one-on-one with each participant, and it was such an enlightened experience, because when you think about how, even if we are, because many of these women were from Canada, their ancestry is Africa, not like me as an African American, but it was an experience to have a conversation with them about the things they are going through, the same things that I hear my people talk about, and to have these conversations with them, to talk about boundaries, to talk about creating safe spaces in your space, to talk about not giving up on yourself, to talk about how to give the information to someone and tell them, listen, this is what it is. This is what I am going to be doing. I love you. I care for you, but this is for me. This is making me feel safe, making me feel good. And having those conversations made me realize that, like, this is something that I want. Like, I want to do this. I want to be able to have these conversations. And not only were we able to have these conversations, and mind you, none of these women knew each other. That was what was so beautiful about this, is that nobody knew each other. I mean, I think I knew one person that was there because she came to the Jamaica retreat, but no one knew each other. But we still had a sense of camaraderie. We still had a sense of sisterhood. And that's what the fuck I want. So that is why I am closing my studio in July of 2023, because I want to be able to have these experiences and not only do them in a space where people get to show up fully as themselves, but also give them the tools to say, I can do this every day. I can be this version of myself every day. I have a support system, so I can do this every day. I don't have to worry about someone giving me information that is not true for myself because this person sees me exactly as I am. I am so friggin' excited for this. Like, the other thing I'm excited about with this is that I get to create this community. Like, so even if you come on this trip and you don't come on another one, you still have this community because we're going to make sure that everyone is there and able to express themselves. So that may be a Facebook group. I haven't decided yet, but I really want it to be like, once you go on one of these retreats, you always are able to tap into that space and be like, hey, y'all, this is what's happening. I just want you to know, can I have some support? So yeah, studio is closing and I'm excited. If you are interested in coming on this very first trip, which is going to be in Cartagena, Colombia, I would be so honored for you to check the description. And in the description, there is a link to get you started with this. Now, June 18th is when the early bird special is no longer available. So the early bird special is you will be able to have $500 off of your full total price of the trip. So if that's something you're interested in, click on the link in the bio. Click on the link in the bio. I'm thinking I'm on Instagram. Click on the link in the description and all the information will be there. I would be honored to have you. I would be honored to allow you to be in a space where you get to be the full realized version of yourself. And make sure you subscribe. All right. Now I'm going to finish my hair and I have some meetings, but I want you to know that you are your longest and most expensive relationship. Any money or time that you spend on yourself is never money or time wasted because you get to be the favorite version of yourself because you exist. Love y'all.